Hi friends, it's Grace and welcome back to another video. I think my voice is okay now, but I was sick on the weekend, which is why I didn't get to film videos for last week, and so I've recovered now, but hopefully I'll be able to talk the whole time. But today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up. So I didn't read that many books in pure numeric value of books in the month of February, but I did make my way through quite a few pages because the books that I was reading were fairly long. So in the month of February, I finished 5 books for 2,669 pages. So that averages out to just over 500 pages a book. However, my stats do get a little bit messed up in this area in the sense that I mark books based on when I finish them. So I spent a good chunk of February reading Clash of Kings, but I did not actually finish it in the month of February. It's going to be counted towards my March totals and stuff like that. So I still have been reading some pretty chunky books, and I still finished 5 books in the month of February. So 2 of those were audiobooks and 3 of them were physical books. And in terms of ratings, I had a 3.5 star, a 4.25 star, a 4.5 star, and 2 5 stars. So pretty positive overall. That's an average rating of 4.45, which you really cannot complain about. Now, as usual, I'm going to move from lowest rated to highest, and so the lowest rated book, the 3.5 star that I read in February, was The UN Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. And so this was a cute romance book. Basically, our premise is that our main character has a twin sister who is getting married, and she basically has this rivalry with the groom's older brother. So you have the couple that's getting married, and then you have our 2 main characters who are like brother of the groom and sister of the bride, and they don't like each other very much. But something catastrophic happens and they are unable to take their honeymoon trip. And so basically they say, like, this is non-refundable, it's already booked. The sister says, why don't you take this trip? You deserve it. And the groom at the same time is telling his brother, like, you should take this trip since I can't. And so basically they've created a situation where these 2 people who don't like each other very much have to decide if they want to go on this like extravagant, luxurious vacation, but the catch is, of course, that they will have to pretend to be newlyweds on this trip. So, of course, like, ridiculous things ensue from there, and the book is pretty like fun and funny, and I liked a lot of it, actually. I liked it quite a bit. The reason that it's 3.5 stars for me is just because in the end, with how everything culminated in the plot, I thought that there was kind of a disconnect between the relationship that we were setting up during the book, in terms of these 2 characters are very honest with each other because they're not worried about hurting each other's feelings, and it's in a strange way like actually a really good foundation for a relationship because they are very honest with each other and open. And then it kind of culminated in like a miscommunication / like not believing someone ending, and so I just really didn't feel like that fit with the relationship that we had been building for the entire book so far, and also it did not fit the like fun tone of the earlier parts of the book, I didn't think. So even though I didn't hate it as a storyline, I just felt like it was very inconsistent and I couldn't get that out of my head. And so it's kind of difficult for me to rate a romance book like 5 stars in the first place. So they're usually already falling at like a 4 or maybe a 4.5. So that's kind of how this one got bumped down to a 3.5. But I don't know, I would still recommend it. Like, I do think that it's good. It was very easy to listen to. It was a very quick read, and it was still like enjoyable. So I don't know, I would most likely still recommend it. I have a feeling that people would like it. Next book I finished, and my 4.25 star rating, is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. And so last year when Sea of Tranquility came out, I picked up an arc of that from NetGalley, and that was the first experience that I had had with Emily St. John Mandel, and I liked it. I wouldn't say that I felt super strongly towards it because there were certain things that just didn't come together the way that I would have hoped in the plot, but I liked it. And so I was still completely willing to pick up another book by her, especially because Station 11 is, like, I think probably her most popular book. She also has, is it The Glass Hotel? I'm not sure if I have that title right, but she has another popular one as well. And I was totally willing to pick this up, and I really liked the audiobook. And one thing I love about Emily St. John Mandel is how much she incorporates Canada, like using it as her settings. And in this case, like Toronto is a very important set piece. And so it grounds the story for me, since that's something that is so physically close to home. And the other thing that was fascinating about this book is, of course, I'm sure a lot of people that have read this have had the same thought if they've read it recently, but that is that this was released in, I believe, 2014, but it does deal with a pandemic, and it is just very kind of eerie to read about something hitting like the rest of the world, like coming from a certain place and traveling out, making its way throughout the entire world. People start getting sick, like nobody really knows what's happening. Of course, this fictional pandemic was a lot more deadly, like 99% deadly. So of course, like you have the sci-fi aspect in that she was looking to explore an apocalyptic story in a certain way. So it's not exactly the same, but when you look at like people going to the grocery store and stocking up on things and then hiding out in an apartment, or like people trying to figure out what they're going to do and where is a safe place that they can go and like stay in, and are they safe anyway. It's just a very interesting discussion being had in terms of the parallels to, like, nobody probably expected, well, nobody did expect something like this to happen in the real world in 2014 when they wrote or read that book. So I thought that might be a little bit of like low-hanging fruit in terms of themes, but it was obviously something that struck me while I was reading it. And Station 11, one thing that I really enjoyed about it is that it was softer sci-fi, and I think that that is probably going to be my taste. Like, I'm continuously looking for ways that I can dip my toe into more sci-fi that I think I'm going to like, because I'm not going to discount like space operas. I'm not going to say that I'm never going to read them, but I do just get the feeling that those are less likely to be to my taste than a smaller scope, more character focused type of sci-fi story. And that very much is what Station 11 does. Like, you follow people, the same characters, sometimes in different timelines, like before and after the world has changed, but you really are focused on the people that you're following. And of course, the way that the world was impacted is a big part of the book because the characters are interacting with that world. But this, I would say, is much more character driven. Maybe not in terms of that they are dictating the plot, because of course the plot is still like the pandemic and the post-apocalyptic nature of the world. However, we're not focusing on a big wide scope. We have a set of characters that we're looking at their struggles and their journeys. So I really liked that. And I think that I would definitely pick up Emily St. John Mandel's other book and look for other sci-fi that perhaps kind of follows the same vibes as that. So it just so happened that the two lower rated books that I read this month were my audiobooks, and the three highest rated books that I read were my physical books. So I'll get into the physical books now. My 4.5-star read in the month of February was The Ruin of Kings by Jen Lyons. So I was so happy to have fallen in love with and enjoyed this book so much. I can see why this has mixed opinions, because suffice it to say, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in this book. There is at least 3 timelines that we're following. We're following multiple characters. We have a very interesting narrative structure where there are people telling the story. There are also footnotes of someone writing, like basically scribing this story that is being told and adding their own footnotes. And then within each of the timelines, you have like complex world building and magic systems and everything like that. So there truly is, like, I can understand that if you pick this up and you're overwhelmed and you simply just like don't feel like dealing with all of that when you're reading this story. I get it. Like, I think that it is amazing and it was very like entertaining and thoughtful and well thought out, but I get it, you know what I mean? But fortunately, I really loved it. So this book follows our main character, Kieran, who I believe we open with him being sold as a slave. And so you wonder, like, how did he get to this point? And so it's kind of a set piece, and then we actually go forwards and backwards in time from that point. We follow him telling his story at multiple different times. And to be honest, I don't even really know how to talk about this, because it just, I'm not certain that I've wrapped my head around it. Like, I have now also read the second book in this series, and I know what's going on while I'm reading, but I also don't think I can like explain it. Like, there is royal houses and there is a lot of different and interesting races on this continent. So we have the Empire of Kur, which Kieran was living in the capital of the empire, but you also have many other regions that have like different peoples and a lot of interesting like cultures, and you also have different magics in different regions, and there is an immortal race as well. There's a lot of like history of magic in the world here, and there are a lot of gods and prophecies, and there are demons and the afterlife and like prophecies that aren't certain because like gods might not be what they seem, and like I think you get what I'm saying in the fact that there's a lot going on. And Maisie is playing with the cord of my ring light, so maybe I will move her so she doesn't knock the whole thing over. Basically, I think I've said all of this to say that I'm very impressed with how intricate this was and how like well Jen Lyons balanced it all and kept track of it all, and the fact that you're being given so much information, but it does very much still feel like there are strong characters in here. They go through character development, you're invested in them. The plot is like surprisingly coherent for the completely incoherent way that I have just described it. If you just listened to me talk about it, you'd probably be shocked. But this, like, it just all was plotted well, it was paced well, and it was just, it all came together in a way that really worked for me. So I was very, very happy about that. Not exactly surprised, because I did have a feeling that I would like this, but it was still pleasant in the sense that I know some people don't, so there was always the chance that I wouldn't like it as much. But I did. So I was very excited to continue with this series, and in the meantime I have continued with it. I just didn't finish the book in February, so I will talk about the sequel a little later. Okay, so then we have my 2 5-star reads for the month of February, and so the first one of those is a romance, and that is Honey and Spice by Bolu Babalola. So this was just so vibrant, I'll say. It wasn't like completely different in terms of story beats from other romances. Like, I picked this up because I loved the tropes that were mentioned, and I thought that it would just be really cool to read it in this setting. Like, you have kind of rivals to lovers, I'll say, not enemies to lovers, and you have like the fake dating trope, but this is set in, I believe it is like southwest London, UK, at a university, and so our main character is like a radio talk show host. Her name is Kikiola, and so she kind of runs this show where she tries to give relationship advice, help other women on campus, and like give advice on how to value themselves, make sure that they're not being used by guys or mistreated or getting sucked into relationships that just aren't good for them, that type of thing. And so she meets this new guy on campus, Malachi, and her impression of him at first is very negative. She basically goes on her show and like puts him on blast for treating women of the college poorly or like being a player, and then they kind of enter a situation where she like kisses him and it's a mistake, but now they have to like do what kind of damage control they can in a public sense because people aren't going to respect her show if they think that she was like cheating the rest of the girls, trying to like get Malachi for herself. And so it is a very, very like entertaining book. I loved the way that the characters acted. I thought that they were all very like individual, and I also liked the kind of like the bite that the characters had. Sometimes the problem that I have with romance books is that the characters just seem very vanilla. Like they seem very passive. They just seem like they're, I don't know, they don't have any strong opinions. Like, I get that in everyday life people can just be like that, but at the same time, it doesn't make for memorable characters in a book. And so that was well done in here. The characters were very memorable, and I think that that was a big strength for me because I think that that made it so that I was engaged the whole time, and the characters were like likable. Even when they weren't doing such likable things, it made them fun to read. And I really liked the romance. I liked the way that it developed. I, of course, mentioned before that I picked this up because I like the story beats that these tropes take, and they didn't disappoint me in that. The ending was cheesy, like, I will admit that. However, I still gave it 5 stars because I just had such a good time with this. So if you're looking for romance, 10 out of 10 recommend. Okay, so the final book that I finished in February, and my other 5-star, is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. And so I am not going to talk as much about this as I might otherwise because this was Stephanie from Miss Richards Reads' pick for my February edition of Reading Booktuber's favorite books. So I believe that I am going to post this wrap-up video first, and then the City of Brass video will be my immediate one coming next after this. So all I will say is that I loved this. I had so much fun. I adored the like richness of like the cultures that are being explored in here. I loved our main character. I loved the tribes of Jinn. This world felt very, very magical. I loved the magic as well. I thought it was very cool. There's just so much, like the plot was very engaging. This is well plotted and well paced. Like I had no trouble getting through this very quickly. And so I have not started Kingdom of Copper yet. I do plan to read it this month, but that's all I will say. I will go farther into it in my dedicated video, but I'll just thank Stephanie for recommending that to me because it was definitely a joy to read. So those are the 5 books that I finished in the month of February 2023. On the whole, a very fun reading experience. I had a good time. So let me know what your thoughts are on these books in the comments down below. Make sure you look out for that City of Brass video coming in a few days. And that is it for this one. That is everything that I have to say at this moment about those books. So please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you'd like to see more content from me. I post videos on most Mondays and Thursdays, and as always I will have my socials and joint Discord with Ben linked in the description if you're interested in any of that stuff. And with that said, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye!